taking on loyalism, even if you don't come from the loyalist community, being an American, or have any knowledge, and those of you who've read the introduction already know the mentality I came into this with. And I literally thought loyalism was nothing, at best it was a fascist movement, neo-Nazi at times, completely tied as a monolith with unionism. And it was when I began to meet Billy back in 1995, and actually ironically on Good Friday up at the PUP headquarters, I began to see something different. When you read the book, you'll see how that evolution takes place. But it is very difficult to take it on, and Gareth knows it. I followed him in the Guardian, and myself, I ran into it this past year a number of times, where a friend I've known for nearly 40 years came up to me at a do one night and stuck his finger in my chest going, "You're writing about the wrong effing side." And other people who essentially said, one person said, "You've gone over to the other side." And that's a vision. If I took on other things like that, other topics, it wouldn't have happened, but that happened to me a number of times. Those were just two of the incidents. I want to talk about two other things before I move on, and two of them occurred over the past 5 years. When I first started this project in 2006-07, I ran into a friend of mine, and she said, "What are you studying?" And this is just walking about the town, and I said, "Loyalist political thinking." And without a hesitation, do they think? And then this past autumn, I was here in October, and I ran to somebody I knew on the street who was walking with somebody from the media, and I didn't realize they were actually doing an interview, and I kind of interrupted just to say hi. And I don't want to give who it was, and the person introduced me to the person with the media, and said, tell this person what you're doing. I says, "Oh, I just finished a book on loyalist political thought in the 70s and 80s. The first reaction, without a split-second hesitation, was, "Oh, it's a very short book then." Okay, and I said, "No, it's about 225 pages. But that was the kind of reaction you get. And as Billy points out, as I tell my students back home, doing a book like this or anything, understanding does not always mean condoning. But it's basically you have to understand it from a different point of view. And from the sounds of it today and from the reaction I've gotten overall, the book is having a positive impact and it's changing the way people view things. And it is a document for the first time that you can say, no, wait a minute, here it is. And those of you who've looked at it, it's footnoted like crazy. Chapter 5 has 198 footnotes. I was not going to be put in a position where somebody picked this up and said, "Where did you get your information?" It's all here, pointing to the documents. All right, now to the official part of it. I will try to keep this short because you didn't hear me ramble on a long time about this book. Those of you who know me know that the number one fear of most people is speaking in public. My number one fear is somebody saying time is up. So I will do my best to keep it short today. I'm going to talk briefly about how the book came about and how it ended up having the impact that you heard about today. When I started this project, I had no idea the stir it would cause, nor did I have any intention of creating that stir. As you read the introduction, I started it because I wanted to know something about the UVF and Red Hand that I couldn't find in books that I had read to that point. I do remember the first time I read Sarah Nelson's Ulster's Uncertain Defenders, and if you've never read it, it's a brilliant piece on loyalism on the Shankill Road in the early 70s. I highly recommend you find it and read it. It's brilliant. I read it many years ago, and I didn't really think about it again until I first met Billy and began to read what I could find from Steve Bruce, Neil Cusack, Graham Walker, and a lot of other people about unionism, loyalism. Roy Garland's work was instrumental in what I did, and I have to thank Roy a great deal for that. But I really couldn't find anything, at least that didn't go beyond the stereotypes, except for some of the people I just mentioned. Keep in mind that I was not over here regularly in those days, and I had to depend on what I could find in American bookstores and libraries. It wasn't much different here, though, because you still couldn't find much in the bookstores. You still cannot go to a bookstore online and find books on loyalism that really don't go beyond the stereotype. So with that in mind, I started this project tentatively in 2006, and it nearly went nowhere. When you read about it, I ended up having a meeting with Billy, which he talked about, went on for 3 hours, and then I was actually getting ready to go home and give the project up when I ran to Billy and had the 3-hour discussion. At the same weekend, I was getting ready to leave, I ran into Harry, who I'd only met once in the Hewitt, and he said, "Well, keep in touch, tell us what you're doing." And I kept in touch with him, and I connected with him with Burke, the Hewitt, and those of you who ever spent Friday afternoon at the John Hewitt know what it's like. You don't need to go to university. Go to the Hewitt around 3:30 every Friday afternoon. It became my decompression chamber, my sounding board, and constant support network, and kept me going through all of this. Many is the time I was prepared to quit. Roy Garden was also instrumental in there when I was thinking about giving this up. Probably the most fateful moment, and it was what Mark was talking about, when I ran into Mark up in Carrickfergus. I was leaving in 5 days. And I did the talk, and Mark says, well, can you come back? Can you do it in front of a larger audience? I said, sure, but I'm leaving in a week. He says, when are you back? I said, October or such and such. 5 minutes later, he comes back, right, October 24th, noon at the Northern Ireland Supporters Club. Okay, so I went to, as I did that, and I came back and did that talk there. The day I did that talk at the Northern Supporters Club, it was packed. What Mark said, it packed up in the afternoon. There was over 50 people in the upstairs lounge. And I was never so nervous in my life. But the reason I was nervous, my great fear was I was wrong in my analysis, that I got my facts mixed up. And I really didn't know what I was talking about, and that this crowd would know it. I prepared and practiced the talk so many times before I came over, and then I did the talk, and I literally waited for the fallout. Thankfully, as Mark pointed out, what I said was taken on board, and from what I heard, spread about the research and the talk. I ended up getting invited to speak over the last 3 years by Billy, Mark, Harry, Intercom, ACT, SASH. I got to speak at the Failure last summer about the Loyalist prison experience. I ended up meeting in different mixed groups. Sometimes I met with senior Republicans on their own to talk about this. Because I prepared for these talks and to deal with these crowds for whom this work would fly in the face of their accepted wisdom and histories. And this focus forced me to organize my work better and hone my argument. Consequently, I did even more research and constantly revised my work. This helped me to deal with the difficult questions the crowds would ask and address those questions in the book before it hit the bookstores. But probably the biggest impact that meeting with Mark had on his project, apart from the organization's book, there was the fact that I ended up doing so many talks in front of so many audiences of varying political allegiances. I was able to reach so many people who would never have known of me or my work or the argument of this book. Without all of this book may have gotten published, and not one person in this room would have even known it got published. But it changed because of Billy, and in particular, Billy getting me started, and then Mark running into me that time on the weekend. And this is how serendipitous this is. And Kelly Crawford, who's here, remember, I had a student over who met William a year earlier on the group that Billy talked about, who came over and was observing what ACT was doing. But William was hesitant to bring her into ACT. Kelly heard her back. William brought Aaron in. The group couldn't understand why Aaron was there, so Aaron brought me in, which then got me to meet Mark, which then led to all the talks. So that's how this actually all rolled around. It was a lot of luck and serendipity. Okay, at the same time, so the book is, I've got great support all along, and the book seems to be having an impact, and Billy talking about it's going to be used for education. I mean, no author can ask for anything more than the book to have a positive impact, and it just doesn't sit on bookshelves or gathering dust in libraries for people to just go look through it. I heard the book that sparked a discussion that for all too long has been suppressed, as Gareth was saying, in academia and the larger society. Because of that, academics such as Gareth, so many of you know Richard Reed, Sean Brennan, who's finishing his PhD, and Aaron Edwards, who's done significant work, and other young academics and researchers can now pick up on this work and finally begin the type of academic and popular research of loyalism that for too long has been kept in the corner or hidden in the attic like a crazy relative no one wants to talk about. I look forward to reading all their work. Again, I look forward to reading all the work and seeing the fruits of their labor, and I'm pleased as hell to know this book is going to open the door for them. Again, it started out attempting to do what I probably would have failed miserably if I attempted to do it for this reason, but I'm so pleased it did this. And you'll notice that I said I look forward to reading their works. There is no second book. Okay? Okay? Those of you who've seen Gone with the Wind, remember Scarlett O'Hara, and I will paraphrase her, as God is my witness, I will never write again. Okay? Okay, I'll do some articles, I'll come do talks, but I'm never doing this again. I'm turned 60, yet had cancer last year that I survived, gonna get married this year. Michelle has known me for 40 years, and she couldn't die till this happened. Okay, so in final, to conclude, I want to thank everyone in the room, especially